Hi there. Those of you who know me know that I'm a very private person. I don't like to discuss personal details of myself. But when Bruce approached me to ask me to participate, I jumped at the opportunity. Because to sort of borrow some quotes from a writer and theologian, Frederick Buckner, he said, the time is right for looking back and trying to figure out where we have come from and where we are going to. For sifting through the things we have done and the things we have left undone. For a clue to who we are and who, for better or worse, we are becoming. And I just thought this is a good time to look back and reflect on my 32 years as a college professor at UNT and working here. So I sort of see my time here divided into 4 chapters. Chapter 1, A Winter's Tale. Okay. I was born in Singapore, grew up in Malaysia, and in 1977 decided to leave home and country to come and get a doctorate degree at the University of Madison, Wisconsin. Okay. Never seen snow, arrived at the coldest winter in 100 years. Shortly after I came out as a gay man, shortly after that I fell in love and started a long-term relationship with my partner of 32 years, Jackson, who is videotaping it tonight. Okay? And I remember in the first year of 1977, Madison, Wisconsin was so cold that over Christmas, Jackson suggested that we should go to sunny Corpus Christi, okay, to relax. We drove all the way to Corpus Christi, and it wasn't much better. And on the way home, because it was Christmas break, we had to get back there, we were stranded. There was a snowstorm, and we found ourselves stranded in a little small town called Denton. And I remember we were staying in Denton, and it was snow-covered, and I looked out the window and I looked at Jackson, and I said, who in their right mind would live in this God-forsaken town? 3.5 years later, I accepted a position in this God-forsaken town to teach at the University of North Texas. The moral of the story is, don't curse the heavens. But I came out in the very liberal city of Madison, Wisconsin. Okay? And when I accepted the position at the University of North Texas, I was warned by a lot of my progressive friends saying, you better be careful. Okay? This is the Bible Belt, and Dallas, Fort Worth, is the buckle of the Bible Belt. So I was a bit concerned. And when I came here, I heard rumors from other faculty. And one of the rumors was that there was a president of the university who dismissed an untenured faculty because the male faculty was showing too much interest in male intramural sports. Whether it's true or not, it struck fear in me. And I was thinking, wow, Dorothy, this is not Kansas anymore. And I found that there were 2 organizations that really helped me adjust to it. When I first interviewed here, during my interview, I wanted to know whether there were gay faculty or not here. And I heard that there was a faculty group called GON, Gay Academic Union of North Texas. I contacted them and started attending meetings and met some wonderful people who became very dear friends of mine for 30-odd years. And another group, subsequent to that, was that we found out there were gay faculty living in Denton that were from TW and UNT. And because many of us don't like to drive all the way to Dallas during the work week, we decided to organize ourselves into a supper club, which we call ourselves the DDQ, Denton Dining Queens. And we met in each other's homes and at supper clubs and what have you, and I made some really wonderful friends in Denton. And so knowing faculty who are GLBT identified really made this barren place more tolerable. Okay? But I went through it, and chapter 2, baptism by fire. I came back from lecturing one day, and I was told by my secretary that I have students who wanted to see me. And soon 4 male students walked into my office, and they said, "Could we close the door, please?" I said, "Okay." And they said, "Well, we are 4 gay students on campus. We would like to start a student group on campus. But we were told that in order to start a group, we had to be sponsored by a faculty or a staff member. We heard you would be such a person to support us." They couldn't tell me who, but apparently they knew that I would support it. And they said, "Could you?" And I asked them a little bit more about it. I said, "Well, let me think about it." So I went home that night, and I spoke to my partner Jackson and told him about it and said, "Well, what do you think?" And he said, "Well, whatever your decision is, I will support you." So I thought, okay, since he knew about it. The next day I spoke to my chairman in the department and said, "There's a student group that wants me to sponsor them. It's a gay student group. Do you have any problems?" The chairman looked at me and smiled and said, "Well, I have no problems with such thing, but you know, you're a newly tenured faculty. There are other people in town who are less progressive than me. So if you became so public about it, it could affect your future." I chose to hear the first part of the answer, which is I have no problems. So I went ahead and I went forward and had a meeting with the dean. And I asked the same question, and like the chairman, the dean said exactly the same thing. I have no problems with that. However, others would. And again, being the optimist, I refused to hear the bad news. So I thought, cool. So I met with this group of students and decided that we were going to start a student group. We advertised in the NT Daily, telling the students that we're going to start a group on Tuesday evening. And we were meeting, having our first meeting at the United Methodist Center on campus. It was a Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock. 5 minutes before 7, as I was walking into that building, I noticed at the entrance there were protesters. There was some conservative religious group on campus who heard about the founding of a gay lesbian group on campus and decided to protest. That evening, every person who wanted to join the group had to walk through protest. I'm sure there were students who came by who were terrified of it and didn't enter. But that evening, there were 12 of us who walked through. And we had our first meeting and decided that we would call ourselves Courage. And that's the founding of the student group, Courage, that was functioning for many years, which is the predecessor of the current GLAD group here. But that's not the end of the story. The next morning, Wednesday morning, when I opened the student newspaper, right on the front of the page was a news item. UNT's gay student group formed on campus under the sponsorship of Dr. Chwee Ly Chng. And boy, was I glad that I went through the whole process. Everybody knew about it. And again, that is the lesson to learn. That this is, baptism by fire. And the group, the next week, after the first protest, we had 150 students. Many gay identified, many just allies in support of it who objected to the fact that people were protesting that. And that group continued to grow and what have you. So that's the second chapter of Baptism by Fire. The third part of it was a little bit sad. I call it activism, HIV activism. That in the late 80s and early 90s, HIV devastated the Metroplex. Jackson and I used to keep a folder of all the names of friends of ours who had passed on. When it reached 100, we stopped counting. Okay? We were going to funerals and memorial services all the time. And I like to tell a story. Okay? I had a very good friend, one of the first people I know who got sick with HIV. He was in Parkland Hospital. At that time, in the early times, Parkland was the only hospital in town and wasn't giving very good service. People protested Parkland. I remember visiting my friend Jonathan in a Parkland hospital, and when I walked into the hospital room, because he had HIV, the door was shut and they had the hazardous sign there, and his dinner and breakfast and stuff were put on the outside because the nurses refused to bring the food inside for fear of contamination. And I remember walking in to visit him and was overwhelmed by the smell of urine and bowel movement. And my dear friend was just sitting in there with no one to help, and I was so upset with it. I remember one time, I would spend my time visiting him just cleaning the room and buying air fresheners to freshen the room and all that. It just broke my heart. But I remember being so upset with it that I marched to the nurse's desk, counter, looked them straight in the eye, okay, and told them what they are doing in neglecting my friend who has HIV is wrong. That if they do not go in there and clean him regularly and give him living, acceptable waters, I would personally report them to the healthcare board in Austin, to the nursing board and what have you. And because I knew the language, it terrified them. And from that moment onward, every time I came in, the room smelled and looked better. But that was Parkland Hospital in those days. Today, Parkland is one of the best places in town that gives high quality HIV care for those people who are HIV infected. So things have changed. We have come a very, very long way from that. And as a result of being personally touched by HIV, by losing friends and what have you, I became more active. I volunteered at the resource center. I joined the board at the GLBT Community Center, and suddenly realized that my PhD credentials really came in handy. Even though I was an activist at heart, because I had a PhD and credentials, I could sit at boards and argue and advocate, and people would take me seriously. I started finding myself sitting on review boards with CDC, NIH, and what have you. And the more I worked, the more I got passionate and active and advocated for one and all. Thereafter, I found that I was noticing that the group that was neglected were Asian Pacific Islanders. Okay, I'm a gay individual, and I found that I had very few friends who were Asian or what have you. And as a result of that, I started a group in Dallas called Dragonflies. Okay. Why the name Dragonflies? Many Asian groups in the United States always start off with the name Gay Asian New York, Gay Asian Washington, Gay Asian everywhere. And it is a very great, unsexy name. Gapper this and gapper that. So when I started the group, I told them, we cannot have an unsexy name. We have to have something a little bit more sexy than that. So we came up with Dragonflies. Well, the group was started in the late 90s, and it is still operating today. Every second Tuesday of the month, a group of friends of mine, all Asians and friends of Asians, would cook home-cooked meals and feed HIV residents of the Ewing House in Dallas. It has been going on for over 15 years, and that's one of the things I feel very, very proud of as a result of that. So the last part is the part that to bring you up to today. I have entitled it Publish, Perish, Publish or Perish and Parades. And that sort of gives the idea of what I'm thinking of. I found myself, sitting in front of a new colleague of mine, okay, who is a new professor, psychology professor, well-dressed, well-spoken, okay, great credentials. I'm of course referring to Dr. Mark Boswick, a good friend of mine. But we were seated together, and here was this man who's just come on campus, okay, who's telling me about this new center that he's put together called the Center for Psychosocial Health Research that is dedicated to addressing the social, psychological, biological needs of HIV positive populations and LGBT studies. And it was like, wow, that is so cool. Okay? And I decided I would join the group, and he very graciously invited me to be a co-director thereafter. And I've had wonderful, wonderful times working there, where we actually help students and we do real research addressing HIV issues, addressing GLBT issues. We are about to launch one of the largest HIV needs assessment studies in the area here. Every year, our students march at Gay Pride. And the bulk of our students who march are not gay identified. Many of them are just straight allies who we are training to learn to give back to the community. Okay? And what better way than to involve students that way? Well, while we are marching up and down Cedar Springs, while we're marching up and down campus, I am quietly chanting, "We're queer, we're here, get used to it." Finally, I want to sort of end with a quotation from a very well-known, well-respected Rabbi Hirschfeld of the National Jewish Center for Learning and Leadership. And he said something that really, really touched me, that I think sort of helps us see what we've done so far. He said, if our definition of inclusiveness does not reach beyond the boundaries of our own personal comfort, can we call ourselves truly inclusive? And that's the way I sort of see what we're doing, why it makes perfect sense. And I have just retired from UNT in August, and this seemed like a good time to reflect back on on all that I've done, all that UNT is doing. I feel so absolutely proud of how far UNT has come. And I want you to join me in giving UNT a very big hand for how far it has come in its inclusion.